Today was kind of a stormy day, overcast, bit of rain, wind, but it finally cleared up, so I decided to get out and paint. I've got about an hour and a half before sunset, so I'm gonna get to work. Here's the scene I'm working with. I like how the trees reduce in size as they go off into the distance, and there are some clouds in the distance as well, so I'll try to capture those. And then I also like how the trail kind of leads the eye into the composition, and the trail is half in light and half in shadow. I'll be painting over an old 11 by 14 inch panel, and I'll be using my usual limited palette, starting with a dark mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I've thinned with a bit of Gamblin's solvent-free fluid. Painting over old paintings is really challenging because obviously the old painting can be really confusing. So I tried to eliminate the painting as quickly as possible, just blocking in some darks here. This is just the hill and this tree right here in the foreground, and then the hill goes up in this direction, and there's a couple of other cypress in this area, and so that should be enough to handle the darks. I've got a mixture here of titanium white and phthalo blue for the sky. This will hopefully make the composition a little bit more visible. I kind of like being thrown off when painting or being challenged. As I've mentioned before, I like when there's spontaneity in a painting and also a bit of chaos as well. I don't want it to be completely under control. And as you progress in your painting journey, you can develop habits in, I don't know, even kind of formulas, which is understandable. I mean, part of it is just from experience, but part of it is also because you want to have good results. But I find it a fun challenge to kind of throw myself off a bit. I mean, plein air painting is sort of throwing yourself off a bit anyway. It's always slightly out of control. At least my plein air paintings are. Okay, I gotta fill in that hill right there. I've got a mixture of titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, some permanent red medium, and some burnt sienna. There are some shadow shapes on this hill here, but I will be adding those after. I'm just gonna block in the light color here to help me avoid confusion. I'm keeping the mix fairly thin because I will be modifying some of the colors and shapes. All right, I'm adding a bit of cadmium yellow lemon to the mix, adding some bright spots in the foreground, and mostly just focusing on abstract shapes here, working quickly, and then I plan to step back and look for interesting bits of magic, hopefully, or just some interesting things to build upon. So overall, I am liking the shapes so far. There are clouds in the distance that could create some interest, and I'm already seeing, do you see this shape here like this? That wasn't intentional, but I kind of like it, so I might build on that. We'll see. All right, I've mixed up a mid-tone purplish gray here using ultramarine blue, some alizarin crimson, and a touch of burnt sienna. And there's also a bit of titanium white in the mix. So this is the portion of the trail that's in the shadow. I think I want to have the trail be in the light right here. For the trail, I've got a mix of burnt sienna, cadmium yellow medium, titanium white, and a bit of ultramarine blue to kind of gray down the mixture. So I think I want to have the trail go off in the distance as well, but be less defined. Something like that. All right, so at this point, I've stepped back about 10 feet, just looking at the big shapes, trying to see if there's anything that I want to change. I actually like the arrangement. I think that this tree right here, I might alter the shape of this tree a little bit, but I do like the idea of having this tree in the foreground and then the smaller trees in the distance. And I think I need to put some light on the clouds so that there's some interest in the distance. So I dipped into this pile of paint that I mixed for the trail, moved it over here, and added some titanium white. I want there to be some light portions on the clouds. The sun is coming from over here and it is setting. So I'm gonna start with little bits of light in the sky. I'm always conscious of light when I'm doing a painting. It's kind of the thing that attracts me to a scene. So always looking for interesting light patterns in the clouds or on the ground, shadows, that sort of thing. Let's see, I might move this up a little bit higher. And maybe I'll have the light go behind the branch there as well. I'm still not sure about the shape of this tree here. So I think I need to alter that. All right, back into the darks here for these shapes. And all right, stepping back again. I do like the shapes. This area here, the shapes here bother me a little bit. I feel like I want to have the light come down just a little bit. Maybe have a little bit of light crossing the path as well. I added a bit of light on the trail here, and now adding some light to the hill. So I sort of split the hill into two parts, and the foreground portion of the hill will be more of a green, and then the distance will have more red in it. Now that the tree shape is somewhat established, I'm adding a bit more light in this area here. As I mentioned, the light is coming from this direction. Maybe even have the light go off the top a little bit. I am going to put some blue because there are bits of blue sky up here. All right, for the blue portion of the sky, I've got a mix of phthalo blue and titanium white, and just paying attention to the shapes that I already established. And there's a dark portion of this cloud that comes down. I've got to fill that in still. So I'm mostly just working with the random things that have happened. The challenge in painting quickly and spontaneously is in seeing the magic when it happens and not painting over it. Oftentimes we just keep painting and we paint over things that are really working. All right, I've got a mid-tone purplish color here I mixed up using ultramarine blue, titanium white, and some alizarin crimson. The dark portion of these clouds is only slightly darker than the light portion of the clouds, so I'm mostly just going with a temperature shift here to create a feeling of light. So having the cool purples against the warm yellows here hopefully will, as I mentioned, create a feeling of light. Paying attention to values, making sure that the shadow portions of the clouds are still light in value, and I'm comparing them to the dark trees in the distance. There's also some purple up in here. And I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat. It's sort of a large brush for the task at hand here, but I like that it limits my control. I can't get too careful. There's a bit of blue over here as well. I added some titanium white and a touch of cadmium yellow lemon to lighten up the sky right here. All right, adding some light to these distant trees and shrubs. I need to darken the darks on this one. Switched over to a number 4 natural bristle filbert. I mixed up a saturated orange color here using cadmium yellow medium, permanent red medium, and some alizarin crimson. There's some brush strokes that I like here that I don't want to completely eliminate, but I do feel like having some orange or red in the painting could be a good thing. I'm going to add a little touch of the orange over here too. Something like that. And I'm adding some pure ultramarine to the tree here. Just experimenting. I do need to add some light to the branches, but for now just playing with the darks. All right, adding a warm green to the branches here. And I always warm up my greens using alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson mixes up the most beautiful greens. All right, I'm losing the light, so I'm gonna wrap this up. And I'm just being careful not to overwork this. Just stepping back and looking for things that stand out, like little bright spots or awkward little shapes, but trying not to clean it up too much, and then also trying not to paint over any special little things that have happened. I don't know if you can see that mountain up behind me, but that's where I was painting from. So the hike out of here is always kind of a long hike. But what I'm thinking about is how you can never predict when it is you're gonna do a good painting. You just have to go out as much as possible, and occasionally a good painting will show up. All right, so here is what I finished up with. This painting took about an hour to complete. It was finished on site. You guys have probably heard me talk about how I prefer painting on larger panels, like say 16 by 20 or 18 by 24 when I'm just playing around or experimenting. But I have a lot of 11 by 14s that I want to paint over. I don't want to just throw them away. So I feel like it could be fun to experiment with different ideas, painting over old paintings. And what I'm finding is that in order to have success with a smaller painting, you've got to really simplify it. And what I mean by that is to reduce the scene into simple shapes, preferably shapes of light and dark. So the dark shapes here stand out against the light shapes. I'm pleasantly surprised with this. I did feel really out of control on this painting, which again is something that I was after. I like being slightly out of control and then stepping back and looking for things that I feel are working and then build upon those things. It's kind of a fun approach if you're not too judgmental with yourself, and you just sort of approach it as play, that you're just playing around. It doesn't matter whether the painting works out or not. You're just stepping back, looking for spontaneous bits of magic and then building upon those. I don't need to tell you guys, plein air painting during the winter can be really challenging. Some of you are dealing with snow. Here it's mostly rain and overcast, some wind. So I was happy that there was a break in the weather and the sun came out. I do like the light in the winter. It's usually the best light of the year, really, because the sun is low in the sky, so you get long shadows. It's really beautiful. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Stay creative. I'll see you in the next video.